Creepypasta, Evil Rico, written by Thelonewolf Productionz. Growing up, I'd always enjoyed revisiting the Madagascar franchise. Even as I emerge into adolescence, I still like to watch the series and its many spin-offs for sake of enjoyment and nostalgia. I like watching the other spin-offs, seeing how the side characters progress and how the Madagascar timeline is moved with political satire as well. A spin-off that I recently watched, The Penguins of Madagascar, proved otherwise. Please note that The Penguins of Madagascar takes place in a parallel universe where the characters are all at the zoo, not specifically before or after the first movie. It has a separate timeline. After watching the first 3 seasons on Amazon Prime, I wanted to find more Madagascar content, and after watching the short Madly Madagascar a few weeks later, I heard online rumors of a 4th season with 3 episodes, which was canceled. I spent hours of research on the last season when I came into contact with an animator of the show, Richard Morris. I asked why the show was canceled, and he replied that the main personnel on the show's rigging team had mysteriously disappeared after partially rigging the 3rd episode of the 4th season. I asked for the content, and he gave me a private link to his Skype, and he put an LCD TV near the camera and put a blank DVD-ROM disc and a DVD player, which was connected to the TV shortly after logging in. He warned me about watching the 3rd episode and demanded I'd tell no one of this or record it. I could tell by the dark interior of the room and his facial mask and gloves that he'd want to keep his appearance anonymous. He then put on the show, and the first 2 episodes played out as if the animals had got back to the zoo from Madagascar 3. They portrayed social deprivation with the new security installed and the penguins creating a secret system of tunnels so everyone can interact with one another. Despite the warning Richard Morris had given me, I watched the 3rd episode. The 3rd episode started off as a sequel to the 2nd episode. The penguins had finished building the tunnels, and the main group, Alex, Marty, Melvin, and Gloria, could interact with one another again. As usual, King Julian was causing serious mischief. This time, he'd taken it too far. King Julian found a book of witchcraft from the 18th century and made a royal occult club. You see, the zoo was low on money. The majority of the people stopped going to the zoo after the animals' disappearances. The new security had cost a large fraction of the zoo's money. The now low budget had affected the food supply of the animals, and the zoo would feed the animals very small portions of food. King Julian was not pleased by this at all. King Julian decided to manipulate the majority of the lemurs into giving their lunches to the spirits of gluttony in exchange for substantial amounts of food. Most of the episode after this declined in quality, and some of the characters weren't fully rigged, having their jaws and limbs not in motion in some scenes with the more basic character models. King Julian thought this was baloney and tricked the lemurs into giving the little food they had to the king. Maurice noticed that the portions had gotten bigger and bigger. Maurice decided to warn the king that something might go wrong, but King Julian of course ignored him and didn't even care as long as he got more food. Maurice went through the book of witchcraft and found that if the ritual was done 6 times, then the spirit of gluttony would be summoned and would require the soul of the richest of addiction and selfishness and the most corrupt. King Julian was at it again, the 6th time this week. After the ritual, he divided the booty food among his royal subjects. When the king was just about to dig in, the air started to materialize, and the air became a humanoid figure. The figure walked up to Julian swiftly as he trembled and put his hand through his torso, and then acted like he was consuming some kind of spiritual matter from him. The figure walked to the center of the pentagram and dematerialized. King Julian then was lying on the floor, deprived of his soul. King Julian was still alive, though. Maurice, who was traumatized, immediately scrambled through the witchcraft book. He discovered that one must be willing to sacrifice their soul for the deprived body to become animate. Roger, who King Julian had helped several times, volunteered. Maurice knew that Roger only needed kingdom advice from what Maurice would give to Julian and would expect greater in return. That which was very selfish and Roger was generally a kind, just, and patient ruler, so Maurice did not want him to sacrifice himself for someone very selfish that used him like that. Rico, who was also a friend of King Julian, volunteered. Maurice knew that Rico was very psychopathic, psychotic, and low-tempered, yet Rico was useful for demolition and was vital for the Penguins' operations. Yet Rico was probably the second most impure character compared to King Julian. Maurice then made the choice to sacrifice Rico, and Rico went to the center of the pentagram as the Penguins sobbed. The figure came back and took out Rico's soul and gave it to Julian. The figure reached down in its throat and brought out a dark piece of spiritual matter and shoved it down Rico's throat, and the figure dematerialized in Rico's mouth. Shortly after this, Rico's entire corneas, lenses, pupils, and uveas were red. Rico began to regurgitate blood whilst inaudibly saying, "Goldfish," 6 times. Rico then ran off. The episode then ended and cut to a security camera footage. A drunk man was crying as animating the episode in an office cubicle. 2 red lights in the background seemed to be getting closer to the man. It was Rico. Rico used his eyes as a source of some kind of psychokinesis. He broke a glass bottle and used a piece to penetrate the man's neck, killing him swiftly after saying, "Goldfish," almost inaudibly, again. He then looked at the camera and came closer to it. The DVD was now done playing. The host came back, seeing that I was still viewing the Skype stream. What did you just see?" he said. "He's out to get you since you now knows you know." I'm now mortified to think what will happen next. That is, if he'll make it happen.